My piece is called Walls by Myrra Baity. Diaries are imprints of your identity, recorded indications of your existence and your experiences, your stories. While some write it down, others choose to allow memory to record it, and some, like her, wear it on their skin. She sat in a room and listened to R&B songs, poetry to soothe the soul. It was not her room. The walls were as unfamiliar to her as the contents of her own heart, but she stared at them anyway. This room was simple. The walls were painted a nice neutral color, and it reminded her of the inside of a mosque, where she spent her earliest days learning holy lessons, which was fitting. The man who inhabited this room with her also reminded her of some of the men that she would see in the mosque, especially the guilt she would feel when she faced them. The tightening of the chest and the regret that she would never be what they wanted her to be, which is why being in this room surprised her. She turned to gaze at him, sitting at his table, bending over some book she would probably never read. She didn't need to. He can tell her all about it when he's done and they were once again in his bed. This man who reminded of all those worshippers in the mosque now spends his spare time worshipping her holiness. His worship was not a monotheistic one, but she did not mind. It was his turn to be guilty. She was happy to just live through these moments and receive his worship. So she sat in his bed and listened to her songs. The man shrugged his shoulders and stretched his arms. She could see his pale limbs reach up towards the bright light hanging from the ceiling of the room, his skin almost reflecting the light with its translucent sheen, the mark of a man contained by his own walls. He was ruffled, like his room. The books on his shelf seemed to be the straightest thing there, which was otherwise covered with crooked rugs, tables, and a weighing scale. A weighing scale that was perched against the pink mattress in one corner, a leftover relic of his current girlfriend, now far away in another country, safely home. He was not a cheating man, he claims. But something about her drew him in. Her ability to discuss foreign politics, her love of Middle Eastern poetry, and her eyes. She reminded him of home, of himself. So he continued to fuck her, and she was assured that he didn't love his girlfriend anyway. She believed him, because he does not seem like a cheating man. He was too contradictory to be a liar, and she could not get hurt, because she had no real feelings for him. He turned to her now, and she moved towards the table and wound her hands round his neck and rested them on his chest. She could feel his head leaning on her belly. "You will come next week?" he asked, and she nodded. "Okay, I send you down." Stretching her body, the woman walked over to pick up her bag and prepared to leave. She never came back. He never saw her again, but there was something about her that made him abandon his morality for the first time. The woman walked home and savored the feel of the soft light of the moon's sliver licking her skin. The same skin contained the heavy dampness of the night and the smell of the tropical trees that she passed. It was not too late, and so she found herself walking astride with a girl who possessed the skin of yellow ivory and dyed light brown hair. The girl's shoulders ridiculously seemed to hang over her head as if it was holding up a big weight only her dark brown eyes could see. Pain. Delicious. The woman crept up closer to the girl until she could feel the girl's emotions, a cocktail mix of something intoxicating to the woman. She leaned forward and sniffed the girl's scent. cheap perfume, tears, and expensive cologne. It figures. The woman lost interest and walked on, more eager to get home, and behind her, the girl continued to cry. When the woman finally arrived home and walked through a hallway of mirrors, she ascended a narrow staircase up to her room and sat on her bed. The room was bare and the walls white, nothing to betray her character to anyone who might visit. Not that anyone would be allowed to visit anyway, especially not men. The only constant thing adorning her walls were her diaries, hanging off hooks, embedded firmly in the concrete. She called them her diaries, but in reality, they were skins, made out of something that looks like mirrors, but it would change in color and consistency once it has absorbed stories. They were now each a different color, and each of them contained stories unknowingly written by different hands. But each had one consistency. Each and every one of them was signed with the letter S, for she. S took off the skin she was wearing and hung it off a fresh hook, and she admired it. She savored the smell and the texture. This skin smelled like old books and the carpets of a musty mosque, just like him. S began to move to another one of her skins, and she remembered. Lavender is the name of this object. S called her Lav, and the walls of her room were purple. S smiled at the memory of Lav lying naked on the bed as S came out of the bathroom. S could taste her lips and remembered that Lav kissed as if it was not her first time kissing a woman, even though it was. It was S's first time too, and she remembered feeling free, even as she drowned in Lav's light amber eyes. Lav had looked at S and asked, "Do you want to hang out next week?" S snapped out of her reverie and let go of her diary. S never did come back, but she knew at least she left a part of herself with Lav, just like how Lav left her stories imprinted on S's skin. S smiled to herself. They never understood why she left, but she had changed their lives in ways that surprised them and her. She wore other people's stories like some people would write their diary or tattoo their bodies. But she wore a skin of mirrors, reflecting to them what they wanted to see, letting their stories imprint onto her and letting her become a part of their spaces. A mirror on the wall. When she became intoxicated by the identities she transformed, peeling off the warm leather so that only her bones were left. And then she put on a fresh skin of mirrors, prepared to don the imprint of the souls of people she encountered until she finds her own. We don't live alone in this world. S just wants to savor the best parts of these encounters so she can sit in her white room and remember. Thank you.